can't make up my mind. There's nothing to be said at this point because there's not enough information. I mean, when I first heard the name, I asked, "Who is that?" Because I didn't connect. So we have to do some research, and I still don't think I have enough information to comment firmly on the nomination. I note that yes, he has a good record of achievements. He's reported to be a brilliant lawyer. But in terms of work done related to corruption and anti-corruption, there isn't sufficient detail or adequate detail for us to, at least for me, to draw a firm conclusion.
And I think that's the major difficulty here, because perhaps I'm sure you expected somebody who is a known quantity in that field.
Yes, known to the extent that the person has the exposure, as a record of holding officers accountable at some level, and so will not be new to the terrain and to the fire and brimstone he's getting himself into. Let's not forget that this office is essentially about public graft. And so the ones appointing you today are the very ones you're going to have to hold accountable. Your friends today will become your enemies tomorrow. We didn't conceptualize the SPO simply to have an additional appendage to the Attorney General. It was because the historical records show that Attorney Generals and Ministers of Justice were regularly unwilling and unlikely to hold their own peers and their own government accountable. And so we wanted a system where you had an independent office with somebody who had the posture and the ability to then take on especially the issues of public graft. So whoever they're appointing is expected to be taking this government and previous government, so to speak, and whatever has transpired, mainly on board. So the notion is not just to have somebody there who is a friend and therefore, and that's all part of it. There's not enough history to show that this individual is capable of doing that or has done that in the past, and therefore one can say that if you project and did a trajectory, we are certain that this is what he will do.
You just use the phrase additional appendage to the Attorney General, and in his particular circumstance, a couple of the things we know about him: a classmate of the Attorney General, they were in the law school together, perhaps graduated together. We understand they are friends, and perhaps that's the circumstance that which is being nominated. Now, Mr. Amidu has added a further. He is describing him as a surrogate of he calls him the alter ego of African Legal Associates, who is Mr. Gabi Otreidakon, and calls him a surrogate of that. And perhaps that's the difficulty you have. You are unable to tell the real purpose or motive behind his appointment.
Well, yes, and maybe to expand that line of argument. If, for example, and this is one of the recommendations civil society had made in crafting the law, we had a process where you have a stakeholder team of people within the sector who help to do the first shortlisting. In other words, we are finding personalities who, as it were, satisfy the elements of Act 959, Section 13, subsections 2A, B, and C. And then out of that shortlist, the Attorney General then nominates to the President, who then picks out of that. You would then be clear in your mind the criteria, and this is the point I'm making, substantive point, is that the issue you're raising is, what is the basis? Now, if the basis was that stakeholder peers will go and say, look, when we scan the environment in Ghana, personalities and people who work, those who have the minimum 12 years and above in terms of subsection 2C, those who have a proven record of integrity in respect of 2B, and those who have the relevant expertise in terms of 2A, are these. So we have 5 names for you. You cannot proceed. There will be a lot more clarity in the public space as to how we arrived at this individual. At the moment, we are not sure. In addition, I don't think that government has done a good job of giving us enough information on the corruption and anti-corruption expertise, so to speak, so that we are convinced enough to say that, okay, this individual has shown a track record, has been able to do this, therefore you can predict that yes, he should be able to do this. I think there's a significant gap in that area.
So what would you expect from government in this direction? A further explanation if he is the choice and is settled on?
Well, I would have wanted a lot more information on what he's done in corruption and anti-corruption. I hear he's done some cases. I think I was on a platform where it was Jifa Bampo was asking me, and she was quoting some cases. I asked her, please, what kind of cases are those? And then she looked and said, well, they are mainly corporate. I said, no, so that's not getting me there. I want to know, even if he handled corruption cases, what was his role? Were there cases that he just happens to be the lawyer? Or it's like he has to take a stance? Are there actions he's taking where it's not simply because you're representing somebody, but you yourself believe in the cause and it came at some expense to you? Because you see, the SPO is not supposed to be a very comfortable seat. So the thinking around this whole thing, I'm not quite certain whether we are getting it right. So yes, the issues raised by Bright Simmons, by Mr. Martin Amidu and others about his relationships, affiliations, are all substantive issues to be drilled into. Because you see, if you are not careful, the whole concept of the SPO will be killed because the individuals we put there were just not up to the task.
Well, I thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, and perhaps maybe moving forward we'll get some more detail on exactly why he's been chosen, and perhaps it's and I'm also wondering if there was any issue, if there was any track record in the fight against anti-corruption, would that have escaped your eyes?
I guess it would not have. I guess I guess it shouldn't have. I guess we would have been quick. So he's the one who did this. None of that has happened. I'll bet I must say that in general, many of the anti-corruption voices appear to have gone mute. Perhaps on one side because people feel like government is not being responsive. It doesn't matter what we say. We're not seeing enough of traction. Maybe rather you get letters being written back to you and a whole new angle being put out there. You're not quite sure whether it addresses the key issues raised in the first instance. So, truth is, no, there isn't sufficient information. I think that it's not beyond the Attorney General. He's a young man. I think he's brilliant himself. I've even argued that, look, if it's just about brilliance, then Godfrey Dame can just do the work. You got to show me something additional about this gentleman at the SPO that shows me that he has a posture to deal with these issues and that he will cut the sword everywhere. It's not one-sided and so on and so forth. But that hasn't proven to be the case. And if the Attorney General and Minister of Justice who made a nomination is so minded, he should be able to deal with providing further and better particulars with respect to the work done by Mr. Kissi Adjabeng, relevant and related to corruption and anti-corruption, so that we are clear that this is somebody who knows how to hold public officers accountable, has done it before, has felt the heat, and like Dr. Mrs. Sokonjo says, when you fight corruption, corruption fights you back. He is able to deal with that scenario. That would be very useful for all of us.
And I was landing with you. Just one last fear that's been expressed by people. People fear in this circumstance where he is not so known to be someone who is so committed to fighting corruption. The SP office was supposed to be different from the Attorney General's office, which has a lot of people has condemned for becoming a conduit for the prosecution of political opponents. That if he's been brought in by friends and cronies, then perhaps we may be seeing the SP office then joining the Attorney General in fighting more, in perhaps pursuing political opponents, than ensuring that that impartial eye is brought into the fight against corruption. Is that a fear that you are that has occurred to you with regards to his name coming up?
No, not necessarily. And I guess it is also because there really isn't any known baggage. The history is not there, so you can't tell. Those who are his friends and affiliates say he's a fair-minded, objective person. He tends to pursue things to the logical conclusion. He will not be unduly pursuing people. That's not his character, etc. All fair and good. Question is this somebody who really has that commitment? You see, for those of us in this space, there's a certain passion for God and country. So I don't pick calls. Look, right now I have 2 meetings. I'm supposed to be online on a market access training program. I'm here talking to Gold. There are sacrifices you make. There are conveniences you don't have. There are comments people pass. There are, but in my mind, because of my training and my background and my understanding of issues, like, this is for God and for country. You need to have a certain raison d'etre. It's like a reason to be in that space. And in my mind, I'm saying, is this somebody who already has had that reason to be committed, passionate about country, about people? So you will go that extra mile. I don't know whether it gets me. And Martin Amidu is not a Martin Amidu simply because, he likes cases. No. I'm absolutely proud to be a Ghanaian. When I go play, I say, look, you can't compete with a Ghanaian who's been trained. We have what it takes. And so I don't understand where this country is today. I think there's so much more we should be achieving. And I think that I should be out there arguing this and making sure that people who are not contributing to getting us there, let's tell them out and get them out of the space and get results. What is a commitment? What has brought him to this point? Is it just about personal achievement? Is it about the fact that, look, I don't understand why we're allowing people to milk the public purse and that those resources could be well spent elsewhere? If you have that mindset, then yes. But otherwise, when the heat comes, you are likely to buckle, crumble, and decide that, look, let me get out of this fire. And so, yeah, there are relevant questions we are all asking. I cannot say that I have a fear about him targeting one group rather than the other. But I don't understand the basis of the selection. There hasn't been sufficient information to explain why Mr. Kissi Adjabeng is the right person. In the case of Martin, the clear personal commitment to protecting the public was evident. What is the incentive? In behavior change, we say you either have sanction incentive or reward incentives. And someone like Martin, the reward incentive is that, look, I have a personal legacy to leave in terms of protecting the public purse. It was clear. Whether you're the president or you're in any position of trust, the question always is, what are the reward incentives you are looking at? What are the sanctions and what motivates you to do what you're doing? It's not clear in this case what it is that is going to drive Mr. Kissi Adjabeng to deliver over and above the call of duty to the people of this country. There's no track record that clearly evidences that this is an area of interest. This is something he's done in the past, and therefore the commitment is distinct. And so it's difficult to speak. At the same time, we do know that there are diamonds in the rough. So you're sometimes pleasantly surprised when you rub the sand and everything off, and then you get a diamond. And so it is not to say that he may not surprise us and deliver on the results. But at the moment, many of us are uncertain.